These are all incredible artists, and the team that we have with Val, Ken Perley here, and his stagers, both Mikey Minosa, who's here with us now, as well as Oljan Barova, who was with us for the first 2 weeks of this project. They have brought this incredible work to life with us here in this city. Of course, as I said earlier, Ramona Pansagrau, our music director, she's been working on this score with Val for almost 7 years, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But it was her responsibility and the collaboration between her and Val as to what the musical choices would be for this entire performance. And you wouldn't believe it, but it's 5 different composers, which is the most amazing thing about what the arrangement has been that Ramona has put together. It's quite remarkable. And hopefully all of you will be coming to the performance, one of them at least, and you will sense this cohesiveness in the score that's quite remarkable, and almost think, this is supposed to be one composer through, but it's actually 5. But I wanted to start with the genesis when we start at the very beginning, Val. Why Jekyll Hyde? Where did that come out of your mind to decide to do this work? Was it like just, you had an epiphany one night, you woke up in the middle of the night and went, Jekyll and Hyde? How did it happen?
Well, I've always been, as a kid, loved the old monster films, black and white. Werewolf, Dracula, Frankenstein, Jekyll and Hyde, you name it, I was glued to the TV, and I remember Jekyll and Hyde distinctly. And then studying Robert Louis Stevenson at school, Jekyll and Hyde showed up. And this is way before I was a dancer. I didn't start dancing until I was 20, so it wasn't even in my mind to have a ballet at that time. But it just stuck in my head, once I got into ballet choreographing. And companies are always looking for full legs that are unique and different that no one else is doing. And I went, Jekyll and Hyde would be great. I'd come up with many ideas. The problem is with full legs that you have to have a product that sells, because they are really full length where the audiences come, they fill the houses, and they pay for the rest of the season, like Nutcracker, Sleeping Beauty, Swan Lake. So a lot of times a great idea these days will be shot down because marketing will go, well, we can't sell that. But for some reason, Jekyll and Hyde resonated. All I had to say, Jekyll and Hyde, but at the time though, even before that, the whole team, design team, Ramona, myself, Carrie Perloff was the dramaturge, to the lighting designer, set and costume designer. We all worked on this without pay. We were doing a mood board, a synopsis, and doing a package so we would sell to companies. And it was quite impressive. I was impressed. And it really resonated, and companies really wanted to do it. For the, one of the few times where yes. And then developing it, but then came COVID. What was great about it is working before COVID, getting funding to workshop. Workshop in ballet is unheard of. You have it in movies, in theater, Broadway. You workshop it in 2 years, 3 years, you workshop. Then if it's decent, then you'll try it on the road. Before it's really seen or critiqued. Movies, everything. But ballet, we're supposed to be geniuses right away. Ridiculous,
but you
right?
are.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to say. But really, it was so great to work with Devin. Devin?
Nice to meet you.
My mind. But to have that opportunity to work with 8 dancers and develop and videotape and work out some of the props and everything was, it was a godsend because COVID happened. Everyone said no, we can't do it, but Finland said yes. 2 countries were open at the time, Finland and New Zealand. We were allowed to go in Finland and keep working on this, but before that we had to do Zooms. But thank God we had footage, we had the material to work on. You can imagine Zooming me at 3 in the morning, Mikey at 2 in the morning, Finland in the morning, and me in the office hitting things and knocking things over, but we had material. it would not have worked if we had not workshopped it here. It would not have worked.
So just to jump in on that just a little bit more, which was just an incredible honor for us to have the chance to actually be the sort of the seed, the germination of his actual vision here in this room, actually in 2019, in late May, early June. Yes, we all know what happened in 2020 when COVID sort of pulled the rug out from all of under our feet. But like he said, that there was material that had been created in the time period he was with us. And it was really kind of a fun experience with Ramona sitting in the room, with Ramona sitting in the room and Mikey frantically scribbling. She's an incredible note taker and gets everything down about what his choreography is on any given day. And Val on his feet, creating work without the pressure. And I think this goes to what he was saying about, workshopping and ballet companies, they just don't blend because time is money for us, right? And we had the wonderful fortune to have a very generous supporter to be able to help make that workshop occur. So he had 2 weeks to just experiment, to create, to try things out. For instance, there's a scene, it's the asylum, the insane asylum, and we had one bed made that was shipped from Finland. Is that right?
I think it was made here.
It was made here, that's right. Thank you. We actually still had it in the basement the whole time you were in Finland, right? No, we didn't sleep there, but, well, I did at night, but anyway. So we had one bed. And in the room underneath you right now is a conference room, and there's these rolling tables that are about the same size as the bed. And so there are 16, we're going to be using 14 of them here in Kansas City. He created this whole scene with the asylum and patients and these beds by rolling these conference tables around the room, which weren't ever laid on or anything, but we use them. So that was part of this workshop idea of not really having to have all the props right there in the room, but just a little bit sort of a resemblance, an idea of what it might be. And also during that time, he was able to create some of the more prominent duets and variations in the work as well, which was really an honor. And I have to say, just for all of you, this is Val's fourth work that he's done with Kansas City Ballet. Fourth time we've had the opportunity of having him. The first was a landmark work of his called Lamborina, which was performed, I'd say, about 15 years ago. The next one was called The Lottery, which is a more recent work, like 2014 or 15. We did The Lottery, which is a substantial work. And then we also had the chance to do his full-length ballet, Lady of the Camellias. So he kind of knows us, right? He understands our organization, he understands the community of dancers and administration, and knows that we support his ideas, his vision. And so it was really quite the honor for him to ask us to be the company here in the States that he would work with on this project and start to create these ideas on us. So I was thrilled with that. And then to see it performed in Finland later, I'm just going to jump ahead real quick. To see it performed in Finland, I was able to get a Zoom link and watch the three casts perform it live over there, as did Ramona as well. We both had a chance to watch those shows. To see the Finnish dancers dancing, they were doing our dancers' movement way over there, major time zone difference, but it was just incredible to see our dancers' body movement, which was his inspiration, being danced by other dancers. And I was like, those are our dancers out on the stage, which was a really remarkable experience to see that. So it's been wonderful to have him, even after the first time it was performed, he came back and he did more workshopping with us to refine it. And that's what I love about Val. He doesn't stop once the curtain comes down on the first shot. He keeps working at it. He's never quite satisfied, refining, fixing, fleshing out a character or two, even more. So we've had a great opportunity to be very much a part of this process, and I'm grateful to Val that he's trusted us. And really, truly, this ballet does have Kansas City Ballet DNA in it, which is really special to me, and I know to our organization as well. I did want to ask Ramona just a little bit about the music. During this whole Zooming time going way over there, the two of you guys were over there. You were Zooming with Ramona here, right? And the score wasn't really completely done, right? You were still working on special sections and refining stuff, right?
Yeah, it really wasn't done until about 3 weeks before the premiere.
Okay.
It's still being.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's changed since the Finnish premiere as well. We'll be doing the version that Finland did in April of this year because they've done it twice. They loved it so much, which is awesome. So yeah, it keeps changing, and actually it changed last week. I added 3 bars to something that Val wanted. So yeah, it's constantly in flux, but that's what's wonderful about it. It's like a living, breathing entity at this point. and it's been wonderful to watch it grow. To start out when Val asked me to assist him, he had one piece of music for the Jekyll Hyde transformation that he absolutely loved, and so I listened to that and basically went, oh, not a good idea, which isn't a great way to start the collaboration, but it was a piece of music that is got a lot of improvisation in it. And with dancers, you need things to be, they need to know what's coming next. They can't be surprised. And choreographically the same way. But it gave me an idea of what he was listening for, of what he wanted. So then we started exploring alternatives. And I think, as Devin said, there are 5 Polish composers in the piece. At some point you have the entire world of music, and you've got 800 years of music, and you've got to narrow it down. So we started with Penderecki, which was the piece that he originally had liked, called Polymnia. Found something similar to it in the same composer's Third Symphony. And so then we needed some other music. We were both listening to music like mad. We were texting in the middle of the night, have you heard this? Have you heard this? To try to find the things that would fit, and then we had lists of music, of possibilities. And then when Val worked with the dramaturge and figured out the storyline, the sections that he wanted, as well as we had already talked about 2 55-minute acts, so you have to figure out where to cut the story to continue. We had all of those variables to work within, as well as we wanted an actual orchestra that is a normal orchestra that could play it. We didn't want, 12 contrabassoons or something. It had to be an orchestra. So, and there were pieces of music that went beyond the bounds of what we could do. So we were watching those things as well. And then I was also watching key signatures, that things flowed from one piece to another. There were just a lot of things like that I was keeping track of, but that Val was finding pieces that would work for the story. And I just want to say, Val is incredibly musical. So believe me, the input in this score for him is huge. I was there to assist. He had a sense of what he needed, and he can portray that because he reads music. He's a very good ear. All of those things. So he knew what he wanted. I just had to help him find it. So that was really a fun treasure hunt for several years. Val would fly here. I would take vacation and live in the conference room. We did that for a couple of summers. And then we just listen to things back and forth and shoot off ideas and make lists. When you're doing a brand new ballet, you don't know, there are a lot of variables you don't know from we know what the pieces will be. We know that what he will choreograph to them. But we don't know things like how long will it take to change the set? How long will it change to get into a different costume? Can that character make it? There are all those variables that I was concerned about when he was in Finland. So we were sort of keeping in touch there. Will he need an extra piece of music stuck in somewhere? Or is this way too long? Did something need cut? So we were keeping track of all of those. And then I was also the liaison between what was happening and what was actually being made in the Finnish music library. So the music librarian and I got to be good friends. The conductor that was conducting for him, he and I had several Zoom calls about what was happening. It was important because of the way this music is, and I just want to say what you heard today is not representative of the entire score. Some of it is stunningly gorgeous. The music fits the story, so it depends on where you are as to what kind of music you're hearing. So I just want you to know that no, it's not going to all be like that. You can come and apply it topically. There are places that are stunningly fabulous. But the conductor needed to know what Val needed to hear, what lines he's listening to, what you needed to bring out when you're conducting it, what he is listening for the choreography. So the conductor and I had a lot of conversations back and forth. And it was actually fun. He was based in Berlin, but was from Texas. So I made a new friend. So yeah, so the whole thing has been absolutely wonderful, and memorable moment for me was opening in Finland. I was in our conference room watching it on the big TV, and they had asked me to zoom in at the end of the performance. I did. They put me on a big screen TV and rolled me out on stage. So it was wonderful. I got to see the backstage party and just be there with everybody. And so I've really, thanks to Val, really felt like I've had a part in this, and I am incredibly proud as to how it's ended up. I think it's absolutely genius what you've done, and I can't wait for people to hear it.
Ramona, so you felt good about that moment. However, you were in your living room at home while that TV was being rolled out on stage. Now you get to actually pick up the baton and be live, leading the orchestra in your arrangements. So I think there are better moments to come. I really do.
Thanks.
Yeah. Mikey, I wanted to ask you, that all this talk about these two constantly changing things, as the person who has to try to transpose all of this information really quickly, and keep up with the changes. How do you do that as a stager?
I drink a lot of wine.
Oh, good.
She does.
Basically what I do is take their lead. Whatever, if they want to change something, that's my job to do. Also something interesting when you heard me counting for the dancers, those counts are not in the score. Those are created by me, well, upon his approval, of course, upon Val's approval, so that the dancers can hear in a dancer's ear, because a dancer looks for the melody, or sometimes have to listen to something to catch a movement. So if I had to follow the score, a movement that they do would be somewhere in the middle. If the orchestra, the musicians don't hear the music or count the music the way the dancers do. So it's quite challenging that way, but it all works in the end. And like what Devin was saying is very interesting, because when we do it as a performer, we're counting it in our head, but then we have to make you believe that it's not counted and that we're doing it naturally, and it just came, spontaneously. So that's the art of it all as a performer. You see them, you saw what has to be created in order to make it look as though it's just happened, it's natural. So that's the hard work that your dancers do. The other thing, so what Ramona said, Val is a person, I've been working with him for 25 years. It's more than any marriage, most marriages, but absolutely. But the reasoning being is that Ramona said he's a genius in terms of his craft for dance. It doesn't have he doesn't create ballets with a lot of hoopla in the back or any kind of, it's really his gift of his craft that makes the ballet beautiful. He tells a story. The beautiful part of this ballet is because when you see it, you follow the story through the music, which is leading you, and it all comes together, and then you realize they haven't said a word. Yeah, they're all doing it by movement, and you're following the story, and that's where I find that Val's work, it doesn't need all the fancy stuff. You wait, by the way, it's going to be an incredible set. It's just going to take you somewhere, and just the fantasy of it all is going to bring you to another world, which is where we like to be sometimes, to take a break from our world. But his creation is from the dancer. His creation is movement. His creation is from the spirit of dance, and it's not all this extra things that whatever they do now with digital and AI or whatever, but that's where I admire him so much and why I want to stay and work with him as long as I can still demonstrate his works, because it is quite, as you see the movie.
So you got all those compliments on video, right?
But anyway, it's been one thing I have to let you know is that's my excitement of all this is having been part of it in the back side of it, and going to Finland and all that. That Kansas City will be the first of, I think, 4 or 5 four companies in the United States that will be performing Jekyll Hyde. In other words, it'll be the first time that a Jekyll and Hyde premieres, brand new, never seen before, and you are going to be the first ones to see it here.
And that was very much something that was on my mind when we were asked if we were interested in doing this production. That if we were going to be a part of it, I was so like, we have to be first. We've got to be first, Val. Please let us be first. I did want to ask you just to go back just a little bit about storyline. This book was written by Robert Louis Stevenson on novella in 1886. It pretty much quickly right away became part of more of the cultural arts with a stage production of it was done literally a year later. The first production of it was done in 1887 in Boston, of all places. The first silent film was done in 1906. And there's been over 120 stage and film productions done throughout the course of time. So a lot of people have told this story, just not in the ballet idiom. So my question is, are you telling the story authentically as the book writes it? Are you taking some artistic liberty and combining characters, eliminating people, trying to streamline the story? So give us a little background on that.
Well, the theme of it is good and evil. It's good and evil in all of us. And that resonated right away. But even before I wanted to do this, this was perfect. I've always wanted to do a male duet where you were dancing with yourself, where you are good side and evil side. And then I went, whoa, that's the whole theme of this. This is the last thing you will see. It's done by 2 men. So it's not, you've got that, the horror films and all of that where they turn into hairy monster and buck teeth and drag, and hunchback and the whole thing. And this is not that. I think the most horrific evil in the world are those that you don't expect. Look at the news. It's that attractive man luring, people dates home, or the mass murderers and stuff like that, looking perfectly normal. This is this ballet in general. I think that's more terrifying to me, that person the least expected that's going to cause violence. Again, this is also what's going on now in the world, the drugs and fentanyl and all this opiates. You see people crazy in the streets. It's really affecting everyone's personality that comes out of you when you're addicted. And there might be some of this to this, because Robert Louis Stevenson was a sickly man. He was, as a boy, he had, I don't know if he ended up with tuberculosis and whatever, but he actually died of a brain aneurysm. But he was a concoction of drugs throughout his entire life. And he wrote this book, this novel, 6 Days and 6 Nights, when he was under the influence. So it's almost autobiographical, because his whole life, he always thought, I want to see the dark side of life. I'm always good. And he rebelled when he was 17 or 18. So it's really an autobiographical ballet. It's really about Robert Louis Stevenson. Robert Louis Stevenson is a central character in this. He's writing it as you were watching it. So he's instrumental throughout this. And he's really writing about himself. So Jekyll Hyde is him. So in general, I did do the characters in it, most of the characters. Oddly enough, there are no women characters in it. There's very few. They're not mentioned. They're mentioned, but they're not in there. And to do the ballet, the artistic director of Finnish National Ballet said, we have to have female characters. I can't do a full length with all men. So we developed many female characters, principal characters, that were sort of developed in film. You see them a lot in the Spencer Tracy one and the other ones. There's the love interest, the fiance, the prostitute with a good heart, one of those. But we had to add those. They weren't in there. But generally the male characters throughout are in there, and they're embellished and stuff.
And I do want to touch on the Robert Louis Stevenson character, which I think is very unusual in the ballet world, what he has done. Very, very original in the creative process of bringing Robert Louis Stevenson, personifying him in an actual person, and him being the thread, the through line of the entire story, literally watching him write the book and in real time seeing that book come to life. And I think that's a really interesting aspect of this work. When you come to the performance and you hear he's one of the first characters you meet right there on stage in his bed writing, and you actually see the story start to come to life around Robert Louis Stevenson. I think that's a really interesting way of telling the story, which helps the story become more real for me personally in its telling. Tell us about this, this whole development of the production. You said you just grabbed some people off the street and said, let's workshop and let's see if we can put something together that we can settle people. I mean, how did you come up with this incredible team? And I will say, when you see this, this is stunning. It is spectacular. This was made, the work was created production-wise, sets and costumes, was created in Finland, where there is a very robust support of the arts. The arts are so important to the Finnish culture, that they actually, while they were there in Finland, they were considered essential workers. Maybe you could say just a quick bit about that.
Well, oddly enough, the arts, unfortunately, are not, in the United States, we are not essential. And the proven point was, to travel to Finland was difficult, because we had legal documents from Finland that stated we are essential workers. And that's usually, the United States means politicians or something else. They didn't believe the documents because there's no way that arts are essential. In Finland's mind, if we didn't go there with all the planning, a lot of people would have been out of work. And that was essential to them. And that's hard to make some countries believe that we were essential. We were, some of us are harassed along the way, not in the Finnish border, but the United States border, where they could not believe the arts could be essential. And there's no way these legal documents from Finland could be real, which was bizarre. So there was all that obstacle. So yeah, it's...
Well, I digress, but what I was after we get past the essential worker aspect, was that in Finland, the production values of this production are amazing. I have no idea how much was spent to create this work, but the costumes are so authentic for the time period, the Victorian era. You could see just what these practice coats that the men were wearing tonight. It gives you an idea. It's you're going to see a Victorian story come to life before your eyes. And the sets are done in such a way that they're not like completely telling you what to imagine, but they certainly guide your imagination to seeing what the rooms might look like around the dancers that are dancing. So these designers, where did you find them?
Well, I worked with Carrie Perloff. She's the artistic director of American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco. I worked with her quite often. And I always went to her house with her theater, because she's an amazing director as well. So I create works for her, and then so I'm always in her world, which was always like shocking. It's a whole different world. And this is the second or third time where she's coming into my world. So it's a whole different thing. It's not the same. But so I've worked with her a lot before. So we've been working on this for a while. And I happened to see her version of Hamlet in San Francisco. And the designs were amazing. He's not a ballet designer. I've never worked with him before, but I absolutely loved him. David Israel Reynoso. And it was great about this. When you see it, it's not your basic ballet design. It's a little bit different because he comes from the theater world. But then he had to work with all the designers in the set and the costume designers that know about ballet and know what needs to be done. So he had to really work through their departments. So they had to school him on the fabrics and this and that, and the sets that work differently. In theater, sometimes it's just one set, it just stays there. Maybe a couple things come in. But there's a lot of that working with that. And Jim French, lighting designer, he's a lighting designer of San Francisco Ballet. He's led many of my works, and he's very collaborative. So all of us are just working. Mikey too. She was with me from the very beginning as a sounding board and working on that. So it was like 2-3 years before anyone even wanted it. And we were so sure they were. We could show them a mood board, study board of what it's going to look like, and which was great as well.
And how about Ramona? What made you think of Ramona as the person?
Ramona and I have worked for years too. No, we've done workshops together. I worked with her in Tulsa, mostly Tulsa. And we just clicked. I always used her to counting music and this and that. Because even knowing music, sometimes you look at it and go, what the hell is that? Somebody's like, whoa, and then she clears it up. But then we find out a way to make it relatable to dancers as well. Because you're not always, with me, it's not always the music that you recognize over the top. I choreograph on some of the beat stuff underneath. And that's getting the dancers to understand that. So the counts are a little bit different. Where the music up here, you go, we're not doing that. We're doing this syncopated thing that's underneath it. So we've all worked on that and helping each other. But we've all worked together before, except for the set and costume designer. But it was fun, actually.
So, Mikey, I just wanted to ask you about this process. You were involved, he was saying that you were a sounding board from the beginning of this process as well. Did you ever at any point go, oh, Val, What are you thinking? Or were you always like, this is great, it's going to be awesome? How do you become a sounding board for Val? Do you just go,
Here's something interesting is that as a stager, or in Europe they say repetiteur, which sounds so much prettier, but it's still the dirty work that we do in the back of everybody. But dirty work meaning is really hard work, and I have to represent him and teach the dancers the movement his way, and it has to be authentic. Vowels, or that's what the stager is. That's her job. His or her job. But the really amazing thing about it is, I never danced his work when I was a dancer. I was a principal dancer with the Atlanta Ballet. I didn't do any of his work. So when we met in Singapore, I was already retired. When I started showing the movement, it felt like I had been doing it all my life. And it was really weird because every time Val when Val said, I want this, and I'm like, I would show it, he would say, yeah, that's it. So I sort of understood his work, and I don't know why. We were probably like either married or brother-sister in another life, if you believe in that. But it just felt so comfortable. So going back to Devin's question, so he uses me as a sounding board, and also saying that is that, what do you think of this, Mikey? And then I'll be like, oh, what do you let's do this. But having said that, so it's a lovely collaboration that we've been doing for years, and I'm very grateful that he uses me and respects my ideas as well. But the one thing that was like, you go, Val, was from the first time he said, what do you think of Jekyll and Hyde? I'm like, oh, yes! So there was no, there were something more. I thought it was a great opportunity. It's never been done before, really, this kind of grandeur and level. So when he said that, I said, I'm on board. Whatever you want me to do, stand on my head for 10 counts, I'll do it.
Yeah, I think it's just really quite exciting for all of us here in Kansas City to actually be able to see this ballet come to life here in North America, as Mikey had said, it being the world premiere, North American premiere. It's just been an incredible experience having Val here in rehearsals for so many weeks. The dancers have had such a great time working with him, and Mikey, of course, and Oljan earlier in the process, and being able to dance with the music chosen by Ramona. The way that she has put this music together is seamless. It truly is, it's seamless. And that just shows her knowledge of the classical music realm and how much she's able to just understand what needs to be what, after what, or before what. And I love that. But the thing that's really exciting is that we're going to be the first ones to do this. And that means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to our dancers, and I feel it means a lot to our community as the word gets out there that we're going to be the first ones. This is a ballet. I feel pretty confident to say that this is a ballet like his Lady Camellias, like his Lamborina, that will be around for decades to come. It's a landmark work. No one's ever in our size company or bigger done this kind of work. It is a part of our language lexicon of modern culture. You've always heard the term Jekyll and Hyde, like, that person's a bit of a Jekyll and a Hyde, right? You know what that means. You just have to say that, and you know exactly what that means. So there is a part of our modern culture, the knowledge about this term, Jekyll and Hyde. But the cool thing is that we have a tremendous amount of national attention right now here in Kansas City Ballet. There are companies from all over the country and Canada who are coming to watch this ballet, to think either to determine if they wish to do it in their near or distant future, as well as a few of the other companies that are going to be doing it. And it's a unique experience, what has happened here in Kansas City. If you recall, we did Wizard of Oz a few years ago, right? And that's a 3-city collaboration that we did. And it really informed us to be able to do this collaboration, which is a cohort of 3 other companies, and to be able to craft and put together a group of individuals that could that is companies, that could come together and agree on a timeline of when this work would be done for each of our companies. You know, COVID, of course, really got in the way of that process, but, you know, we were determined to continue that forward since it was being done in Finland, to keep pushing forward to craft and create this cohort of 4 companies that would do it. And I can only say one of the other companies, and that's Colorado Ballet, because they're doing it this season, so it has been announced in their season in Denver. But the other 2 companies, we have to leave it to them to make their announcements, so I can't really say that. But know that there are 4 companies that are going to be doing this over the next 3 years. And we're on the front page, and I love that, and I love the fact that there's so much attention right now. And I would be remiss, since we do have a wonderful guest with us tonight, that being our former executive director, Jeff Bentley, is with us, and it was he who really kept driving this bus forward through the rain, through the snow, through the sleet, and through the terror of night right? Yeah. to get this to the point where we could get 4 companies to all sign on the bottom line and say, okay, we're going to do this. And it's a unique experience. We're sharing we're dividing up amongst the 4 companies a lot of the costs of this production. It doesn't mean this production is cheap, but it means it is something that at least is somewhat attainable for each of us in our respective budgets. But I do want to say a big thank you, since he is here, to Jeff Bentley for all his work on this. Bravo! That really, it's been quite a ride, and it's wonderful to finally be at the point of actually seeing all of this hard work behind the scenes from Val, from Ramona, from Mikey, from Jeff, from so many other companies, from Finnish National Ballet, to finally see it come to this country and be able to be presented here on our stage at the Kaufman Center. Wow. I can't wait for opening night. I really can't. It's going to be very exciting. So we do, yeah, there we are. We do have a little time here on purpose for anybody who might have a question. We have one. Thank you so much. Go ahead.
So you mentioned the premiere of Wizard of Oz, and this is such a long time coming to put together, and I suspect that throughout the creative process, there's film, there's audio, there's video practice, and then when you premiere in the United States, is there an opportunity for a documentary like the making of the Wizard of Oz or this that might play?
Certainly those opportunities could exist and do exist. I know that Finnish National Ballet did a lot of footage as well, and we have all of our footage from our workshopping process we did, from the process we're involved in right now. And I know that we have been in conversation with our local public television station about a small amount of information, but I'm not sure if we're going to get that kind of Wizard of Oz experience, The Road to Oz. I think it was called Me, Dorothy, and The Road to Oz, yeah, which was a 1-hour documentary, which is still floating around out there, which is great. But not every production gets that kind of just the right timing of a television station needing the information, and we're right here and available. Maybe. Thank you for asking. I'll call them again and say, what do you think? Anyone else? Yes, over there. Yes, go ahead.
The time signatures change because of the way that the act is washed. I know that Mikey was on the county day, and the different sixes and involves.
Oh, so you're asking if the time signature changes?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, sorry.
Within the, I guess, within each scene, that changing. I know it's kind of
No, it's a great question, and I sit next to Ramona because she points out time signature changes where, we're going, and you're like, what just happened, right? Maybe you might like to answer. There are crazy time signatures.
There are. Although the section that you were watching, the entire section is in 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. And that becomes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So, Mikey's amazing at making it make sense for the dancer. The dancer counts the musical phrase. The musician counts the musical bar line. So one of the things I really enjoy about Val's choreography is those motives and things he picks up that aren't necessarily the melody. I end up hearing the music differently. And I love that because it might be a line I hadn't thought about bringing out, but he's latched onto it and it is way cool. So when I conduct it, you're going to hear some of that come out because it's like a wonderful counter motive to it, and it's the unexpected, which is what makes it wonderful.
And for a dancer, we love Mikey. If I were to have danced and had Mikey running a rehearsal, I would have loved it because she is so precise on her counts. And she gets how to count, the dancer counts, we call it, like that 7, 8, 11, 13, those 4 phrases, it made perfect sense. Once I was like really watching Mikey count it, I'm like, oh yeah, of course, Yet I was watching her going 1, 2, 3, 1. Sorry, I didn't conduct that right, but she was doing a 3, 4 phrase, and I'm watching her hand, and I'm watching Mike, and I'm like, ooh. There's no way a dancer could possibly count the way the actual score is written, in terms of the bars, So, does that answer that?
Yes.
Okay, and I know someone else up here had a question. Yes.
For the mask dancer.
The masks.
Is that
Maybe we could talk about that briefly. Thank you for asking that question. This is one of the wonderful things about this production. Is how Jekyll turns to Hyde, and maybe you want to talk about that with the use of masks.
Right, but it's also use of costuming and stuff. The mask, you'll see a lot of that. Almost every dancer has a mask of that, mostly red, depicting what's in Stevenson's mind, in his head. And in the mask represents, it's a faceless. He's being, I call it dancers, or Jekyll and Hyde play them, you're not cooked yet, you're being baked. So like in the costuming, Hyde is a state of undress and just this sort of image. And as he emerges throughout the ballet, more and more clothing is on, and then he loses the mask and he becomes cooked, as I said. So at this point, this is towards the end of the ballet, and that was Mr. Hyde coming in and loses the mask, and then he's cooked, so to speak. But yeah, it's hard to explain. It's kind of psychological, the whole thing. It's really inside the mind of one man, and there's a lot of hallucination scenes. What you're going to see is the inner mind and soul of Robert Louis Stevenson. And so you're going to see a lot of this, a lot of fantasy, what's in his head, what's submerging. And red is an iconic color. Red is like, you see the red door here. There's the door to the laboratory, those guys, is red. And it faced the seedy side of the town, of the alley, where the front door was elaborate, where he lived. So there are 2 doors. So red represents a lot of times Mr. Hyde. When he appears or doesn't appear, if it's in Jekyll's mind, red will start to appear. And so red masks you'll see a whole scene where everyone's in red masks. So it's a fantasy. It's in his mind. He's being, like I said, Hyde is coming out of Jekyll, and the evil is coming out. So I know it's hard to explain, but
How about, can you just, so from a dancer's point of view, I mean, there's no mouth on the mask, so are they having any issues with breathing?
no, we worked a lot of that in Finland. You see their mesh. It's not, you have to get used to turning and dancing in them, but they get used to it. So yeah, but you can see, it's just your sense of where you are is altered. So it takes a while to really, plus, when you have a mask on, even if it's a blank face, like they are, the audience sees a lot where you look. And so you really have to really instruct and work on the dancers. You can't look up this way and like they gotta be straight this way. And if you do anything this or this, it's amplified. So I mean, don't move your head. You're standing there. So normally, if the mask isn't on, that might be great that you look around. But a mask alters the way you move. Even in actors, when they have masks on, it's a whole different technique as far as telling a story and moving.
Yeah, thank you for that question. That's great. Anybody else? Yes, back there. Leslie, please. Thank you. She asked to talk about the role
Well,
of the
there's
female.
I think the fiance is not even named, but there's a fiance that Dr. Jekyll has, and it's the daughter of Sir Danvers Carew. Sir Danvers Carew and Mrs. Carew. She's not even talked about. She's talked about that. You don't see them, but she's mentioned. The maid is mentioned, and the maid I designed. It's a totally central role. But I don't know if you saw the film Mary Riley, which is Julia Roberts' film, and Milkovich was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's a fabulous movie. It's very underrated. To watch it, it's the perspective of the maid that lives in the house, and she knows the secret of both. And it's an amazing film. So I used that as a character, female character. There is, I think, a prostitute that was murdered. I can't remember where I saw the movie or when I saw the book, but she's not really a character. She's mentioned, but she's a huge central character in this, where she, in the same tavern, meets Dr. Jekyll. And then she's familiar with him and takes a fancy to him. But then in Act 2, it's the same tavern, but then Mr. Hyde comes in and tries to seduce her. And it's that whole thing of, I know you, you're different, but there's something about you that I know. So she trusts him, and he murders her. So it's a lot of creepy stuff, but it's from a lot of different sources and you do that a lot in ballet, where somebody's talked about, but not necessarily in the novel, whatever. And you pull that out, which is great because they don't have words, they're discussed, but you work on that, you make it a character. It was interesting on finding those female characters, because Finland would absolutely not have produced it if I didn't find that. And then we have, of course, the ballroom, and we have a lot of secondary roles for female, a lot of dancing, but we devised that and did that. But I did something similar. I did a Hamlet. Wasn't full length, but almost an hour and a half, and Hamlet wasn't the central character. Ophelia was, so I called it Ophelia. So it's one of those things, just pulling characters that weren't necessarily in the original novels as the Hamlet. And I went, no, I think Ophelia was the most tragic character. I think Hamlet was a schmuck, So it's like her reactions to like all that's going around her. So I love taking secondary characters. So I was not afraid of doing that. I found them, so hopefully.
Yeah, and I'm glad you did do that, because
Yes.
there are some really substantial roles, and it really gives a good balance to the work. Gosh, any other questions? please feel free. Well, if not, going once, twice. Okay, in that case, I do want to say a big thank you to Mikey, to Ramona, and to Val for your time tonight. Thank you very much. Thank you, Val. Please come and see the show. I promise you, you are in for quite an adventure. Thank you for your attendance tonight. It's great to see so many people here and interested in this work. Have a great night. Safe travels home.